I invited my boss to my daughter's birthday party, and he fired me in front of all the guests. But he never expected what I'd do next. I always believed that work and family should be separate. But when your daughter asks you, begs you, to invite your boss to her birthday party because he's the man who helps mommy buy cake, you don't say no. You smile, nod, and send the invite. It was supposed to be a joyful Saturday. Balloons, cupcakes, laughter. Instead, it became a public humiliation I'll never forget. Because during my little girl's birthday party, right in front of my family, my friends, and a dozen children, my boss fired me. No warning. No explanation. Just a smug smile, a cruel announcement, and a broken heart in front of the bounce house. But he had no idea who he was messing with. Before we begin, if you enjoy true revenge stories with powerful twists, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, hit the like button, and turn on notifications so you never miss a moment of drama, karma, and unexpected justice. Now, let's begin. My name is Melissa. I was a full-time administrative manager at Caldwell & Hughes Construction for nearly 7 years. I never caused trouble. I never asked for special treatment. I showed up early, stayed late, and even covered for others when they made mistakes. I wasn't looking to climb the ladder. I just wanted to do my job and be a good mother to my daughter, Emily. Emily had just turned 6. She was bubbly, imaginative, and obsessed with birthdays, even if they weren't hers. She'd been counting down to her own party for months, carefully selecting the theme, unicorns, the cake, rainbow layers, and even hand-making glittery invitations with my help. "Should we invite your work friends too?" she asked as we sealed the envelopes. "What about Mr. Robert? He's your boss, right?" I laughed. "Mr. Robert doesn't usually go to birthday parties, sweetheart. But he gave you a bonus last year. That means he's nice." I didn't correct her. Instead, I did what moms do. I smiled, nodded, and added his name to the list. At the office the next morning, I placed the invitation on his desk with a polite post-it note. "No pressure," I wrote. "Emily just insisted." He didn't say a word that day. Or the next. Then, 3 days before the party, he stopped by my desk. "I got the invite," he said coolly. "Might stop by." That should have been a red flag. But I was too focused on icing cupcakes and ordering extra folding chairs to think twice. Saturday arrived. The backyard was full of color, laughter, and music. Kids ran wild with painted faces and sugar highs, while parents mingled over lemonade and snacks. I was in the middle of helping a little boy remove glitter from his hair when I heard Emily shriek with excitement. "Mr. Robert." I turned, and there he was. Robert Caldwell. Mid-40s. Expensive loafers on the grass. Holding a gift bag awkwardly in one hand. "Thanks for coming," I said, trying to mask my surprise. He gave a tight smile. Didn't want to disappoint the birthday girl. He handed Emily the bag and watched her rip it open. Inside was a plush unicorn and a $50 gift card. "Say thank you," I prompted her. She hugged him. "Thank you, Mr. Robert." He chuckled and looked around. Nice turnout. It felt weird. Too polite. Too cold. Something was off. But I pushed the feeling aside. At 3 p.m., we gathered everyone for cake and presents. Emily sat in the center, wearing her glittery crown, beaming with joy. I stood next to her, lighting candles. And that's when Robert cleared his throat. Loudly. "Everyone," he said. "May I have your attention?" People turned. Music lowered. Children stilled. I froze. "I just want to say," he continued, "that it's been a pleasure working with Melissa for all these years." A murmur of polite claps. "But," he added, "as of this afternoon, we've made the difficult decision to part ways with her. Effective immediately." Gasps. Silence. My hands trembled. Emily looked up at me, confused. "Mommy." I couldn't move. I couldn't breathe. He smiled, as if this were some kind of joke, or worse, a performance. "I didn't want to ruin Monday morning," he said casually. Figured I'd get it over with. Then he turned and walked away. Just like that. In front of everyone. My family. My daughter. My life, ripped apart in the middle of a birthday cake. But what he didn't realize was that I wasn't done yet. Not even close. The backyard was silent for a few long seconds after Robert walked out. All the parents looked down, awkward. A few guests pretended to check their phones. My sister hurried over with a glass of water, whispering, "Do you want me to ask them to leave?" But before I could respond, Emily looked up at me and said, "Mommy, did I do something wrong?" That hit me harder than anything Robert had done. I knelt beside her, pulled her into a hug, and whispered, "You did everything perfect, sweetie. Everything." She still didn't understand, but she smiled weakly and helped blow out her candles. I powered through the rest of the party like a robot. Smile. Pass out slices of cake. Thank people for coming. Clean up. All while my mind screamed, "Why? Why did he do that? Why here? Why humiliate me in front of everyone, especially Emily?" That night, after Emily was asleep and the kitchen was finally clean, I sat at the table and stared at nothing. The only sound was the hum of the refrigerator and my heart pounding in my ears. I wasn't sad. I was furious. And beneath that fury was a need to make things right. He thought he could do this and get away with it? Not a chance. Monday morning came. I didn't go to the office, obviously, but I did go online. My termination hadn't come with paperwork. No HR call. No exit interview. Just a public announcement and walkout. That wasn't legal. I began by digging into Caldwell and Hughes employee policies. I'd memorized most of them anyway, but I needed documentation. According to company guidelines, any termination required prior written notice, 2 verbal warnings, and a formal HR consultation. I had none of those. And then I remembered something else. Robert had once made me sign off on a time-sensitive vendor payment without documentation. It had made me uncomfortable, but he'd pressured me, said it was urgent. I still had the emails. I started compiling them, every shady request, every late-night directive, every instance where he bent company rules and made me cover for it. It added up fast. But I needed more than emails. I reached out to 2 former co-workers who had mysteriously left over the past year, Jasmine and Marcus. Jasmine replied first. He did the same to me. Fired me in front of the whole team. I couldn't even collect my things. Then Marcus. Call me. I have proof he's been skimming from subcontractor invoices. Now we were getting somewhere. I met Marcus at a small diner on the edge of town. He looked tired, older than I remembered, but he smiled when he saw me. "I heard what he did to you," he said. "That man's a snake." He pulled out a flash drive. "This is everything. PDFs, screenshots, vendor calls I recorded. He's been overbilling on subcontractor labor and pocketing the difference through a fake consulting firm." I blinked. "You're serious?" He nodded. "That's why I left. When I confronted him, he threatened to ruin me. I took the drive and promised to protect his identity. Then I called Jasmine. She agreed to provide a written statement about Robert's public firing tactics, especially with female employees. That night, I built a digital folder. My own documentation. A Jasmine's statement. A Marcus's evidence. HR violations. A timeline of Robert's behavior. I didn't send it anywhere yet. I wasn't ready for that move. First, I needed him to feel safe. Because revenge isn't just about justice. It's about timing. The week after the party, Robert returned to his usual routine at Caldwell and Hughes like nothing had happened. I knew this because Jasmine, still in touch with several people in the office, gave me updates. "He's already replaced you," she said over the phone. "Some intern promoted overnight. No experience." Of course. That was his style. Use people, then toss them when they knew too much or got in the way. But I wasn't just another disgruntled employee. I had leverage and patience. Instead of going public immediately, I decided to bide my time. While I waited, I worked on rebuilding my reputation outside the company. I connected with local nonprofits, volunteered at 2 construction job fairs, and even helped a friend run social media for a contractors union. One thing about being fired in front of a crowd, it spreads fast. And people talk. Some started reaching out to me privately, offering support, advice, or just outrage. One message stood out. It was from a man named Luis, a vendor who had worked with Caldwell and Hughes for years. "I think I know what Robert's doing. He forged my signature on a change order last year. I didn't report it because I didn't want to lose the contract. He was willing to send me copies of the documents. Another piece of the puzzle. Another thread to pull. My plan was working. Slowly, I was building something Robert would never see coming." Midway through the second week, Robert made a mistake. He posted a photo on LinkedIn, smiling in a suit, standing in front of a new office building. "Proud to announce our latest partnership. Excited for what's next." That's when I realized how desperate he was to look untouchable. No mention of losing 3 employees in the past year. No mention of internal investigations. It gave me an idea. I crafted a response to his post, not as myself, but as a concerned anonymous commenter, using a professional-sounding username. "Interesting. Heard the last project under your name had invoice discrepancies. Hopefully this one runs cleaner." It only took 12 hours. He deleted the post. Then reposted it again, edited and stripped of any comments. But people had already seen it. Screenshots had been taken. My anonymous message had started a quiet stir, and even a few ex-employees chimed in on other forums. This was the perfect moment to gently re-engage my audience. On a quiet Tuesday night, I posted a thread on a private business forum, sharing part of my story. No names. No company identifiers. Just the facts: a public firing, suspicious vendor behavior, internal misconduct, and the emotional toll on my family. The post ended with a simple sentence. "I'm sharing because these stories matter. And if you've experienced something similar, don't stay silent." The replies poured in. People wanted more. They asked questions. Some shared similar stories. And a few, surprisingly, offered legal advice. My quiet revenge was becoming a storm. And Robert had no idea it was coming. By the end of week 3, my case file against Robert was airtight. Marcus's audio recordings were crystal clear. Jasmine's signed testimony was notarized. Luis's documents showed altered invoices. And I had emails, spreadsheets, and digital fingerprints connecting everything back to Robert's personal accounts. Still, I didn't want to go to the media first. I wanted the company to deal with him directly. I contacted Caldwell and Hughes' internal compliance department. Anonymously. I sent a secure package with a full report. Every violation. Every manipulated document. I even included a summary highlighting how each unethical decision tied directly to company losses. And I gave them a deadline. If they didn't act within 2 weeks, the file would be sent to the State Labor Board, a whistleblower legal team, and half a dozen construction trade publications. For the first time in weeks, I slept soundly. Robert had fired me in front of my daughter. In front of my family. Now, it was my turn to return the favor. Except my audience wouldn't be kids with balloons. It would be lawyers, auditors, and federal investigators. 10 days after I sent the anonymous report to Caldwell and Hughes' compliance department, I received an email. Well, not me, technically. It was sent to the burner account I used to contact them. "Your report has been received. An internal investigation has been opened. We ask that you remain available for follow-up questions." I didn't reply. They didn't need me for what came next. The following Monday, word reached me, again, through Jasmine, that Robert had been called into a closed-door meeting with 2 senior board members and someone from legal. His face when he returned to his office was pale. He didn't speak to anyone for the rest of the day. The walls were closing in. I kept monitoring internal chatter. Employees started noticing changes, requests for vendor re-audits, compliance officers popping in unannounced, files being pulled from archives. Robert's assistant was suddenly replaced. The atmosphere was tense. One afternoon, Jasmine texted. "He knows someone turned him in. He's paranoid." Good. Let him sweat. And while I had his attention, I launched phase 2. It was time to control the narrative. Robert had built his public image around being a family man, a self-made leader, someone who supported his team like family. Those were the exact words he used in a podcast 6 months ago. I clipped the audio. I paired it with the transcript from the party, his words when he fired me in front of everyone. I recreated the scene in writing, with no names, just roles, my boss, my daughter, my guests. I posted it as an anonymous confession to a popular workplace subreddit. Within hours, it exploded. Thousands of upvotes. Hundreds of comments. People were furious. Outraged. Some shared similar stories. Others demanded justice. And then came the message that changed everything. A mid-level manager from another branch of Caldwell and Hughes reached out privately. "This sounds familiar. My regional VP pulled something similar last year in Denver. Fired someone publicly. That guy had a breakdown." I replied, "Would you be willing to talk?" He was. Turned out, Robert wasn't the only one doing this. But he was the only one stupid enough to be caught on camera, in front of kids, with a paper trail of corruption. That night, as I scrolled through the messages of support, the stories of others rising up, something occurred to me. If you're watching this now, and you've ever been humiliated at work, pushed aside, or punished for doing the right thing, remember, you're not alone. There's power in sharing. And there's power in staying calm, until it's time not to. On Thursday, Caldwell and Hughes issued a press release. Effective immediately, Robert Caldwell has been placed on administrative leave pending an internal investigation into conduct and compliance violations. The company remains committed to transparency and ethical business practices. It was short, sterile, but it was enough. I stared at the screen for several minutes, letting it sink in. He was out. Suspended. Not yet fired, but out of power. Isolated. Jasmine called me 30 minutes later. He cleared his desk. No goodbye. Just walked out. I smiled. Just like he walked out of my daughter's birthday. Only now, there were no cupcakes. No audience clapping politely. Just silence. And the knowledge that he had lost everything he valued. Control, image, legacy. But I wasn't finished yet. I had one more move. Not to destroy him. To remind everyone what he had tried to destroy. Because revenge, when done right, doesn't just tear down. It builds something better in its place. 2 days after the press release, a journalist contacted me. She wrote for a mid-sized business ethics outlet and had seen the viral post on Reddit. She didn't know my name, just the story. But she suspected there was more behind it. "I've covered whistleblower cases before," she said. "And this one feels personal. Would you talk to me off the record?" I hesitated. Going public meant taking a risk. But it also meant making sure what Robert did to me, and others, wouldn't just disappear quietly. We met at a cafe across town. I brought a folder, just in case. I didn't give her everything. Just enough to verify the story. The firing. The humiliation. The pattern of mistreatment. The vendor fraud. She listened. Took notes. And then asked the question that caught me off guard. "Why do you think he did it at your daughter's birthday party?" I thought for a moment. Because he didn't see me as a person. Just an employee he could discard. And doing it there. That was about power. Control. She nodded. "And what do you want now?" I didn't even need to think. Closure. and to make sure no one else goes through what I did. The article dropped 4 days later. It didn't use my name, but everyone who had been at the party recognized the details. So did my former co-workers. Fired at a child's party, when corporate abuse crosses the line. It went viral. Local media picked it up. Then, national. The focus wasn't just on the firing, it was on how common public humiliation has become as a management tactic. And how so few people fight back. But I did. By the end of the week, the board at Caldwell and Hughes released a second statement. Robert Caldwell was officially terminated. The investigation had confirmed the misuse of funds, the compliance violations, and the abusive conduct. They offered a formal apology to the former employee and her family. It was too little, too late. But it was public. Jasmine sent me a photo of the break room bulletin board. Someone had printed the article and pinned it with the caption, "Believe your gut." Even Marcus texted me, "You did it. You actually took him down." But what mattered most was Emily. She found me on the couch that night, reading through emails, and climbed onto my lap. "Mommy, are you happy now?" I looked at her, smiled, and kissed her forehead. "I think I am." She leaned into me. "Are you gonna have another party soon?" I laughed. "Maybe. But not in the backyard this time." A week later, I received an unexpected email. It was from a nonprofit that specialized in employment rights and legal aid for women in hostile work environments. They had seen the article and wanted to meet. Not just to thank me. They offered me a job. "Your voice matters," their director wrote. "We need people who've lived it, not just studied it." I took the meeting. And 2 weeks later, I accepted the offer. Not only was it meaningful work, it paid better than my old job. It offered flexibility. And most of all, it gave me purpose. I had spent so much time plotting revenge that I hadn't thought much about life after. But now I had one. A stronger one. And if you've stayed with this story this far, I want to thank you. Not just for listening, but for caring. If you've ever been humiliated, mistreated, or underestimated, know this. You are not small. And if someone tries to take your power away, you can get it back. You just have to be patient, precise, and unafraid to speak up. And if you're enjoying stories like this, where justice finds its way back to those who deserve it, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. There are more stories coming, some even wilder than mine. Now, are you ready for the ending? 6 months later, I stood in front of a microphone at an employee rights conference. The room was full: lawyers, union reps, HR professionals, and survivors of workplace abuse. I was nervous, but ready. I wasn't here just as a guest. I was the keynote speaker. When I first walked into that party with a tray of cupcakes, I never imagined I'd end up here. That public humiliation had cracked something inside me, but instead of shattering, I had rebuilt. I opened my speech with a story, not the full name, not the full company, but enough. I described how it felt to be fired with no warning in front of my child, to clean up wrapping paper while choking back tears, to watch someone abuse power for ego and amusement. Then I paused. "But what that man didn't realize," I said, "is that you never know who you're dealing with until they've been broken. Because the ones who rise from that, they're dangerous. They're focused. And they remember everything." I told them about the investigation, the community support, the evidence, the long nights of silence followed by small wins that snowballed into something unstoppable. People clapped. Some cried. And when I finished, I looked into the crowd and saw something beautiful. Belief. Not just in me, but in themselves. That December, I got a letter in the mail. Official looking. From a firm I didn't recognize. Inside was a short, formal statement. Robert Caldwell had filed for bankruptcy. He'd been sued by the company for damages and breach of contract. His consulting firm had collapsed. And multiple vendors were pressing charges for fraud. I stared at the paper for a long time. Not with joy. Not with pity. Just closure. It was over. The man who had humiliated me in front of my daughter now had to face his own shame. Not in a backyard full of children, but in front of courts, creditors, and headlines. Poetic justice. 1 week later, Emily had her 7th birthday. We threw a quiet party at home, just family and a few close friends. No speeches. No surprises. Just love. After she went to bed, I sat on the couch with a cup of tea, thinking about how far we'd come. And that's when I decided to tell the full story publicly. Names and all. I posted the complete version, on my terms. Not out of anger anymore, but to document what happens when you push someone too far and underestimate their will to fight back. The post reached thousands overnight. And before I turned off the lights, I added one last line. He thought he ruined my life. What he actually did was give me a new one. Thank you for watching this story to the end. If it moved you, if it inspired you, or if it reminded you of your own strength, subscribe to the channel. Share this video. And remember, revenge isn't always loud. Sometimes, it's quiet, patient, and perfectly timed.